The Bible is one of humanity's most influential texts, yet its stories hide layers of complexity often overlooked. The God of the Bible, Yahweh, wasn't always the all-powerful, solitary deity worshipped today. His story is one of transformation, deeply tied to the shifting landscapes of faith, power, and identity. This is a journey back to a time when Yahweh stood not alone but among a pantheon of gods, his supremacy contested, and his character forged by the needs of a people searching for meaning in a harsh and uncertain world. In the earliest days of Israelite religion, Yahweh was not the singular figure we know today. Archaeological finds from sites like Kintilat Adred and Khirbet el-Kham provide evidence that Yahweh was worshipped alongside a goddess named Asherah. Inscriptions refer to Yahweh and his Asherah, revealing that the earliest Israelites didn't envision a monotheistic faith, but a divine partnership. Asherah, known as the Queen of Heaven, was central to the spiritual lives of ancient worshippers. Her presence challenges the notion that Yahweh was always solitary. Enjoying the story? Like, subscribe, and share to support us. Let's continue. Asherah was revered as a goddess of fertility and life. Her symbols present in temples, household shrines, and sacred poles erected in her honor. These sacred poles, called Asherim, were placed alongside Yahweh's altars, emphasizing a shared divine authority. For centuries, families prayed to Asherah for protection and blessings, integrating her worship into their daily lives. Yet, as Yahweh's story evolved, Asherah's influence became politically inconvenient, leading to her gradual erasure. The shift toward monotheism was not simply a religious awakening, but a calculated political strategy. During King Josiah's reign, sweeping reforms were enacted to centralize worship in Jerusalem and solidify Yahweh's dominance. Temples to Asherah were destroyed, and her name systematically removed from scriptures. This marked the beginning of a new narrative, one where Yahweh stood alone, reshaped into an all-powerful deity to unify a fractured kingdom under one God. Traces of polytheism linger in the Bible, often hidden in plain sight. In Deuteronomy 32, 8-9, Yahweh is described as receiving Israel as his portion from the Most High, a reference to El, the chief god of the Canaanite pantheon. This passage hints at a time when Yahweh was one of many divine figures, assigned to protect a specific people rather than ruling the cosmos. The evolution from a regional god to a universal creator was neither instant nor seamless. The term Elohim, frequently used for God in Genesis, is a plural form, a vestige of Israel's polytheistic past, while theological interpretations later redefine this as a royal we. The original context suggests a shared divine authority. The creation stories themselves reflect this complexity, with echoes of earlier traditions woven into the fabric of the monotheistic narrative. Yahweh's role as a warrior god is vividly illustrated in the stories of conquest and battle that define much of the Old Testament. His actions in the conquest of Canaan reveal a deity not of quiet meditation, but of fire, steel, and destruction. In Joshua 6, Yahweh commands the Israelites to march around Jericho for 7 days, culminating in a supernatural collapse of its walls. This wasn't just divine intervention, it was an order for complete annihilation. Men, women, children, and even animals were to be destroyed. Yahweh's commands weren't simply acts of war, they were proclamations of his dominance, both over the Israelites and their enemies. In this harsh ancient world, such displays of power were necessary to solidify faith and allegiance. The narrative of Noah's Ark offers a glimpse into Yahweh's role as a God of judgment and renewal. In Genesis 6-9, Yahweh looks upon humanity and sees corruption so vast that he resolves to destroy all life, save for one righteous man and his family. The floodwaters weren't just punishment, they were a cosmic reset, wiping the slate clean to begin anew. However, this story shares striking similarities with older Mesopotamian myths, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where Utnapishtim II survives a flood sent by the gods. By reframing this story through Yahweh's moral authority, the Israelites gave the tale a unique theological dimension, portraying their God as both a destroyer and a savior. Despite the flood's intended purpose to cleanse the world, the Nephilim, the mysterious offspring of divine beings and human women, continue to haunt the biblical narrative. In Numbers 13, the Israelite spies sent into Canaan report seeing giants in the land, remnants of these hybrid beings. The Nephilim blur the line between myth and theology, representing humanity's fear of divine intervention gone awry. Their presence reminds us that Yahweh's judgment, no matter how thorough, could not fully erase the complexities of creation. The concept of the divine council, glimpsed in passages like Psalm 82, reveals a universe far more collaborative than monotheism suggests. Yahweh is depicted as presiding over an assembly of gods, judging their actions and assigning roles. This council reflects ancient beliefs where divine power was shared among multiple entities, each responsible for aspects of creation and governance. Over time, as Yahweh's narrative evolved, these other gods were reinterpreted as angels or demons, erasing their equality and rebranding them as subservient. The enigmatic sons of God, introduced in Genesis 6, 1-4, challenge the boundaries of divinity and humanity. These beings, often interpreted as fallen angels or lesser gods, took human women as wives, producing the Nephilim. This act was seen as a violation of divine order, a crossing of sacred boundaries that led to chaos. Their offspring, mighty and fearsome, are described as heroes of old, men of renown. The story reflects a shared mythological theme found in cultures worldwide, where gods and mortals intermingle to create beings of great power. Yahweh's evolution from a regional war deity to the universal creator is marked by his absorption of other gods' attributes. Initially, Yahweh was closely associated with the deserts and warfare, worshipped by nomadic tribes. As the Israelites settled in Canaan and absorbed local traditions, Yahweh's identity expanded, merging with El, the supreme god of the Canaanite pantheon. This blending was a theological and political necessity, transforming Yahweh into a figure capable of uniting diverse peoples under one faith. The two creation accounts in Genesis offer a window into the merging of Israelite traditions. Genesis 1 presents a structured, almost cosmic creation, where Elohim speaks the universe into existence in 6 days. This reflects a later, priestly perspective emphasizing order and divine authority. In contrast, Genesis 2 is a more personal narrative, with Yahweh Elohim forming Adam from clay and crafting a garden for humanity. These accounts, while different in tone, were stitched together to form a cohesive narrative, revealing traces of polytheistic origins in the plural Elohim. Centralizing Yahweh's worship was a political act as much as a theological one. King Josiah's reforms in the 7th century BCE aimed to unify the kingdom of Judah under a singular deity. This centralization involved erasing competing gods like Asherah, banning household idols, and declaring the temple in Jerusalem as the only legitimate place of worship. The Bible reflects this shift, as Yahweh transitions from a god among many to the one true God, cementing his supremacy. The New Testament represents a dramatic shift in how divinity is understood. Jesus, often seen as the fulfillment of Yahweh's promises, redefines the relationship between humanity and God. Where Yahweh commanded fear and obedience, Jesus offered love and forgiveness. His teachings of compassion and grace, encapsulated in the Sermon on the Mount, challenge the eye for an eye justice of the Old Testament, presenting a God who seeks reconciliation over retribution. Early Christian sects like the Gnostics viewed Yahweh through a different lens, often considering him a flawed lower deity. They believed the true God was unknowable and transcendent, with Jesus serving as a messenger to reconnect humanity to this higher divine source. These views, while suppressed by the early church, challenged conventional theology by questioning Yahweh's ultimate supremacy. The tension between Yahweh's portrayal as a wrathful, vengeful deity and Jesus' embodiment of mercy and love reflects humanity's evolving understanding of divinity. This shift wasn't merely theological, but also cultural, responding to a world in need of hope, unity, and compassion. Was Jesus redefining Yahweh, or was he revealing a different aspect of God altogether? The Bible is not just the story of Yahweh, but also of the people who shaped him. His transformation from a tribal war god to the universal creator mirrors humanity's search for meaning in a chaotic world. Each retelling, reinterpretation, and theological shift reflects the needs of a people striving to reconcile their experiences with their faith. The Bible presents Yahweh as a God deeply intertwined with justice, yet his methods often raise difficult questions. In Exodus, Yahweh hardens Pharaoh's heart repeatedly, prolonging the suffering of both Egyptians and Israelites during the plagues. This narrative portrays Yahweh not merely as a deliverer, but as a deity willing to employ suffering to display his power. This duality, both a compassionate savior and a fearsome judge, became a defining characteristic of Yahweh, one that humanity has struggled to reconcile. This tension between justice and mercy underscores the evolving perception of Yahweh over centuries. The concept of the divine council, while diminished in later interpretations, persists as a vital thread in understanding Yahweh's early identity. In passages like Job 1, the sons of God present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan appears not as his adversary, but as a divine prosecutor. This portrayal of Yahweh surrounded by other divine beings suggests that the ancient Israelites viewed the heavens as a shared dominion, with Yahweh gradually asserting dominance. These glimpses of divine plurality reveal the dynamic nature of Yahweh's rise to singularity. The transition of Yahweh's adversaries from divine council members to cosmic rebels mirrors humanity's need for a clear dichotomy between good and evil. In the New Testament, Satan transforms from Yahweh's agent to his ultimate antagonist, representing all forces opposed to divine will. This evolution reflects theological developments that sought to externalize sin and create a moral framework of cosmic struggle. Satan's new role also reshaped Yahweh's image, further solidifying his supremacy as the ultimate arbiter of good. Stories like Noah's Ark highlight the shared cultural memory of ancient floods. The Bible's adaptation of these myths reflects a theological shift, portraying Yahweh as a moral judge rather than a capricious deity. The flood became not just a tale of survival, but a lesson in obedience and divine justice. Yet, its similarity to earlier accounts, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, reveals how the Israelites absorbed and reshaped older stories to reflect their evolving understanding of Yahweh. Archaeological evidence continues to challenge and expand our understanding of Yahweh's development. Inscriptions referring to Yahweh and his Asherah, unearthed at sites like Kuntilat Adrid, show that Yahweh was not always perceived as a solitary figure. These discoveries offer a window into a time when religious practice was fluid, with Yahweh sharing divine honors with other deities. The systematic erasure of these gods, including Asherah, reflects not just theological changes, but also the political strategies of centralizing power. The tension between Yahweh's Old Testament persona and Jesus' teachings is perhaps most evident in the Sermon on the Mount. When Jesus commands, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you," he directly contradicts Yahweh's wartime decrees to annihilate enemies like the Amalekites. This stark contrast has led many to question whether Jesus was redefining God or presenting an entirely new divine ethos. Either way, it marks a profound theological evolution, one that has shaped billions of believers. The Gnostic texts, excluded from the biblical canon, provide a radically different perspective on Yahweh. In works like the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus speaks of finding divinity within oneself, challenging the externalized authority of Yahweh. Gnostics viewed Yahweh as the demiurge, a flawed god bound to the material world, while Jesus represented a higher, unknowable source of divine truth. These suppressed narratives reveal the diversity of early Christian thought and the deliberate shaping of orthodoxy. As Christianity spread, Yahweh's identity as the one true God became a cornerstone of religious and political unity. Yet, his origins in the pantheon of ancient deities remain etched in history. From a local god of war to the creator of the universe, Yahweh's rise was as much a story of power and consolidation as it was of faith. This evolution reflects humanity's need for a God who could transcend tribal boundaries and offer a universal moral framework. The Bible itself is a curated collection, shaped by the theological and political needs of its compilers. Texts like the Book of Enoch and the Apocalypse of Peter, which delve into divine mysteries and cosmic battles, were excluded for their controversial themes. These omissions highlight the human hand in shaping divine narratives, emphasizing control and uniformity over diversity and debate. And the enduring mystery of the Nephilim continues to captivate readers. Who were these beings? Why did Yahweh allow their existence? Their appearance in Genesis 6 and their supposed survival after the flood suggests that the boundaries between divine and mortal were not as rigid as later theology claimed. These hybrid figures serve as a reminder of a time when the divine was far more intertwined with humanity. The story of Yahweh is one of transformation, an evolving deity shaped by the needs and struggles of his followers. From his beginnings as a regional war god to his role as the universal creator, Yahweh's journey mirrors humanity's search for order and meaning in a chaotic world. Each era reimagined Yahweh, infusing him with the values and fears of the time, creating a deity that transcended the boundaries of culture and geography. As archaeology uncovers more about the ancient world, Yahweh's story continues to expand. Inscriptions, pottery, and forgotten texts reveal a God deeply rooted in a shared cultural memory, adapted over millennia. Yahweh's evolution from one God among many to the central figure of monotheism speaks to the power of faith and the human drive to define the divine. His story is far from over, as each discovery reshapes our understanding of the God who shaped civilizations.